Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to All for United. This is our transfer special, but unlike different transfer specials, we're not talking about an incoming, we're talking about an outgoing. And as always, for this type of show, I always like to draft in a very special guest, an expert. So on Twitter the other day, I questioned the Amad Diallos signing to Rangers. So I reached out and I said, you know what, I'm going to get a Scottish football expert in, someone to educate not only me, but also Manchester United fans on this move. So I brought in Mr. Callum McFadden from the World Football Index and Football CFB. You can find him over there. He does fantastic work over there. First of all, Callum, not your first time on Off United. You've been on the panel shows, and we've had very good discussions kind of on the show about United. But first of all, I just want to kind of give our viewers a background on yourself. So first of all, just tell us a bit about the work you do, not only World Football Index, but Football CFB and also Beyond the Pitch.
Yeah, delighted to join you, Keane. So basically, I started Football CFB, which was and still is my own sort of football platform where I was interviewing players and managers in podcast form. I then went with Beyond the Pitch and Phil Brown doing some good Manchester United content and interviewing professional players and managers for Beyond the Pitch as well. Then I was running my own website for Football CFB, but I was approached by a couple of publishers to take my work over to their site. So I joined World Football Index in July of last year and also joined Over the Bar in August of last year. So basically for World Football Index, interview professional players and managers for the website. So in terms of some of the United content on there is Norman Whiteside's on there. I'm going to have Wilf McGuinness this week as well. Ron Atkinson's on there. Henrik Larsson, of course, Celtic icon and a Manchester United loanee as well. So basically, my main work is for World Football Index now, where I'm interviewing professional players and managers, but still podcasts on Football CFB from time to time, albeit not as regularly as they once were. And luckily enough, asked to go on Go Radio here in Scotland every so often to talk about all things Scottish football as well. You can probably see some of the signage behind it, John Hartson and a few Celtic players, but trust me, that won't cloud my analysis of Amad to Rangers. I tend to call things as I see it, and when I'm working on a sort of professional show like this, any club allegiances I have, I put out the window and look through the eyes as a football fan. I try and be as neutral as I can, of course. So that's something that I would like to point out. So although you can see John Hart's in the background, I will be as honest as I possibly can.
One thing I can always vouch for about Callum, guys, he is very unbiased, very good at what he does, and just your journey and kind of how quick you've done all these things, Callum. It's amazing, and I always say to yourself and Phil, like, you're an inspiration to a guy like me, coming in doing this type of work. So just keep up the good work, and Joe, it's always great to talk to you and work with you and do all of that. But Callum, I put up a tweet there last week, and I questioned Amad Diallos' loan move to Rangers, because for me, obviously, Amad Diallo, very good player, a flair player, but also, I suppose very light in kind of his physical stature. So I put up a tweet the other day, and I basically said that I'm unsure about Amad Diallo's move to Rangers on loan. Just to highlight a couple of things, just in terms of the overall competitiveness in the Scottish Premier League. Because for me and Man United fans, I suppose most of us will be keeping an eye on the Premier League, and probably the only kind of knowledge most of us would have of Scotland in terms of the football will be the Old Firm, and that would be kind of, I suppose, most of the Scottish kind of football league. That's what I suppose the knowledge we'd have of it. But in terms of this move, many Man United fans have considered the Championship a more appropriate place for Amad Diallo. I was one of them included in that. But the other half of Manchester United fans are saying, this is a great move for Amad Diallo. He's come to a big club in Rangers. In terms of what Amad's walking into, in terms of the overall transfer and his development, is this move to Rangers going to help his development? Because some people are saying he may not be always an automatic starter at Rangers, and it could stunt his development. Or is this going to be a good move for him?
I'll be honest, Keane, I think it's a great move for the player. I think Manchester United are delighted that he's joined a club like Rangers. Scottish football, I understand, maybe doesn't get the coverage and appreciation across the globe as people like myself think it should, but I fully understand that. When you look at the Premier League, when you look at Serie A, when you look at German football, I can fully understand why people focus on the top 5 leagues in the Champions League. Our clubs in Celtic and Rangers, the top 2, haven't been good enough in the Champions League now for about 5 or 6 years. So I can totally understand why people look at Celtic and Rangers at the moment, if you don't know Scottish football or don't pay a close attention to it, and think, is that the correct move for a player like Amad from a club like Manchester United? However, I think it is, and I disagree with yourself and others, in a polite manner, of course, about the Championship. I think the Championship's a great league. I think the Championship's exciting to watch. However, when you come to a club like Rangers or a club like Celtic, I'm not joking when I say a draw is a crisis and a defeat is a disaster. And for me, that's the sort of mentality you're going to need to succeed at Manchester United, or you should need to succeed at Manchester United. For the last decade or so, it's been difficult at United. I feel that the standards and expectations of the club have went backwards, which is not something that I'm proud of. I know it's not something that you and the team on here are proud of. There's been an expectation, even this season, we're talking about United being happy to finish 4th. That should never be the expectation for a club like Manchester United. It should be challenging for titles and challenging for honours. Now, albeit Scottish football is on a lesser scale to the Premier League and the Champions League, because Rangers and Celtic aren't in the Champions League, as I've mentioned, and haven't been for a couple of seasons now. However, when you join Rangers or Celtic, as I've said, you need to win every single game. The expectation is to win every single game, and not just win games, but win with style. If Celtic and Rangers are grinding out 1-0 victories, it will be tolerated for a period of time. However, the fans of both clubs demand more. And as I say, I believe, Keane, if Amad came to Rangers, I think it's a great move in the sense that I think he will play regularly. I know there's competition. Kemar Roof plays in the wide areas for Rangers. Ryan Kent, who's been linked with Leeds United in the Premier League for a big money move, playing those wide areas. But I don't think he's coming to be a bit part player. I think he's coming to settle into a Rangers squad, because don't forget, Rangers changed manager in November time. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst replaced Steven Gerrard. Gerrard, of course, really rated Ryan Kent, and I'm not saying that Van Bronckhorst doesn't, but he wants to put his own stamp in the team. So he's got Amad Diallo in on loan from United, and Rangers today are set to confirm the signing of Aaron Ramsey from Juventus on loan. Now, that to me shows you that the Rangers board are clearly backing Van Bronckhorst. He's got a good pedigree as a manager. He had success at Feyenoord in the Eredivisie. He delivered trophies when he was at the club. After Feyenoord, he went to Chinese football. However, he left Chinese football when the coronavirus pandemic sort of reared its head, shall we say. So he was only there for a few months. So I don't think it's fair to judge him on the fact that he was in Chinese football for a very brief time. So he's come into Rangers. He started relatively well. Rangers are still top of the league as we speak now, going into a crunch game against Celtic on Wednesday. So from where we're speaking now, Keane, in late January, start of February, he's joining Rangers at the time where the Scottish Cup's on the horizon. Rangers are expected to win the Scottish Cup. The league title race is really heating up. As I've said, I've mentioned that game on Wednesday. Rangers are expected to win the league title. Same for Celtic. They're expected to win both as well. But as we know in football, there can only be one winner. And I think, I know this is a very long answer, I apologise for that, but in terms of mentality, he's coming to a club in Rangers that are expected to win and simply have to win. And for me, I think that stands him in good stead, because if you join a team in the Championship that's hoping to nick the playoffs, I would argue that you can maybe win 2 and draw 1 and nobody really bats an eyelid. You won't get that at Rangers, and you won't get that at Celtic.
Yeah, I can see definitely from that point of view, and I think maybe that was the ignorance of me from not knowing kind of the Scottish Premier League as such, because obviously Celtic and Rangers, you're talking about European football and you're talking about like the size of the clubs, they're massive clubs, and obviously they have, I suppose, a massive expectation that they need to win almost every game to compete with each other. Now, the only thing I questioned was maybe, and this was actually proved wrong to me on Saturday, was outside of the old firm, Rangers and Celtic more or less win every game. I watched Amad's debut on Saturday and scored a very good goal. He played very well. Played well in various sports, but Rangers did draw 3-3 to Ross County under Malky McCoy. You know, I was shocked. I was expecting Rangers to wipe the floor of them just simply because of the team they have. And as you said, Giovanni Bronckhorst is doing a very, very good job of them. But in terms of this, in this move for him, Callum, obviously he's coming into, I suppose, his first home game, baptism of fire. Is that Celtic Park or is that Ibrox?
It's at Celtic Park.
At Celtic Park. So away at Celtic Park, baptism of fire.
And the reason, Keane, sorry to interrupt, it's going to be a baptism of fire in more ways than one, because normally you'd have 8,000 Rangers fans. That was then put down to 800 fans in the last couple of years before the pandemic. However, for this game, it will be the first game that I can remember in my lifetime where there'll be no Rangers fans in Celtic Park. It will be 60,000 Celtic fans for that game. Because Celtic fans were in at Ibrox during the first derby of the season. So he's going to be going into, I mean, people say welcome to hell when it's Galatasaray in Europe and the famous games that English sides and Scottish sides have played over there. This game on Wednesday with 60,000 Celtic fans, 0 Rangers fans, is going to be the biggest welcome to Scottish football and big-time football for him that he could possibly imagine, because as all of you watching will know, if you've watched these games even in television, they are incredible in terms of atmosphere, and the fact that there are no away fans in, and it's going to be a full Celtic crowd, it's going to be a massive test for him mentally and his teammates. So in terms of getting the test straight away, Keane, this is going to be massive for him. And again, this is why I think United have sent him up here. A title race, they're still in European football, set to play Borussia Dortmund in the coming weeks, Erling Haaland and all that's going to bring to Rangers. And of course, they're still wanting to win the Scottish Cup. So as I say, a massive start for him. The weekend was topsy-turvy. Obviously, Rangers dropped points, but Wednesday night's going to be like nothing he's ever seen before. Honestly, trust me.
Yeah, I've often seen the Old Firm, and it is like in terms of end-to-end game, atmosphere, crunching tackles, you name it. I'm just going to say straight out, and I know, Callum, you're a Celtic fan, but I'm glad Scott Brown is not playing that game, because Scott Brown would absolutely clatter him in the first challenge of the game, no doubt about it. But it is a baptism of fire, Callum, and I think on this scale, it's probably the best way for him to start Scottish football, because maybe if he played a couple of lower end teams, he might have had to, I suppose, he would have got into kind of a sense of security probably, and it could have create, I suppose, a false sense of security in this league. But Giovanni van Bronckhorst, Callum, obviously has come through with Barcelona, and he's been in and around that kind of La Masia, territory in terms of developing young players. When you kind of look at his influence in terms of, obviously Steven Gerrard's Rangers teams were very rigid, very organised, hard to beat. In terms of Van Bronckhorst, he's come in. Has he tried to adapt a more attacking style to Rangers? And is the case in terms of maybe Amad's development, this actually may help him in terms of maybe coming back to Man United in the summer and maybe possibly, I don't know, potentially playing for like a Ten Hag or a Pochettino in terms of them managers who like to play, I suppose, heavy mental front and full football?
In terms of Van Bronckhorst, Keane, to reference back to Steven Gerrard's team, Steven Gerrard had a habit when he was at Rangers of playing with 2 number 10s. Hadji, who's obviously out injured for the rest of the season, probably one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, that Rangers pushed hard for Amad. Because he's ruled out, Rangers are going to play with real width again, and under Van Bronckhorst, they have been playing with width, and that's something that I would say is a slight difference to Steven Gerrard's teams, because in Borna Barisic and James Tavernier, Rangers have got 2 incredible attacking fullbacks in terms of Scottish football, and obviously they've done well in the Europa League as well. So Gerrard was relying on his fullbacks mainly for the width, whereas Van Bronckhorst is slightly changing that with someone like Amad coming in to play in that wide area. So that for me is the biggest change that I've noticed since Gerrard went to Aston Villa and Van Bronckhorst came in. And you mentioned the fact that Van Bronckhorst has also played at Barcelona. He's managing the Eredivisie. I think that's the sort of manager that will suit Amad as well. He's an experienced manager. He's had success in Dutch football. He also was doing a bit of work, I believe, for the City Football Group as well before he went to China. So in terms of modern football, he's got a full understanding, not only having played the game at high level, obviously a World Cup runner-up as well with the Netherlands. He's got a good understanding of what modern players need, what modern players want. And I think he's the sort of manager that I I fully understand United wanting to give Amad to. So as I say, the main change that I've noticed is rather than playing those two number 10s that Gerrard was set on for most of the games that he was in charge, there's certainly more width in the wide areas, which will only help Amad because he is a natural wide player. And although I think he may play through the middle if Rangers have a few injuries, I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. United need to see him play in the wide areas because that realistically, Keane, as you know and I know, and our viewers know, is where he's going to play for United if he's deemed good enough to play for United, which is something I don't want to write him off. I don't want to question him too much, but that's something that for me, the next 18 months are going to be make or break for. This 6 months is great to get football, but the big challenge is if Ten Hag comes in, Pochettino comes in, or Rangnick stays on for another 12 months, who knows what's going to happen there, of course. Will Amad be in serious consideration for pre-season for United?
Yeah,
this 6 months will obviously go a long way to sort of making that decision. And obviously, even if he is in the mix for United, is he going to be anything more than a sporadic squad player? Because at the moment, it's not been easy for him to get into the team. And one thing, having spoken to United about Amad when he came up to Rangers, that they are obviously hoping for is that he can integrate himself, obviously, into a club up here that's challenging, but crucially, hopefully, by moving away from United, it will give him more leeway, I would say, to maybe try and settle into the UK more, because he was obviously affected by lockdowns and the uncertainty of last year. So in terms of him developing his English, that's something that they're very keen on.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that he's come up here obviously takes him away from the limelight of being a United player every single week, where the focus is on him at United, and hopefully he can develop his game not only on the park but off the park, because he's certainly going to need to mature in more ways than one to succeed at United. I'm not saying he's immature or anything. I just mean, everyone knows that to be a United player, especially at a young age in a key position, you need to have some sense of maturity to be able to deal with that pressure. So hopefully, from a United perspective, that's what he can also develop while he's at Rangers.
Definitely. And I think, if you look at in terms of adapting to UK culture, being in Glasgow, that goes without saying. He'll adapt to that. I think, obviously, being around Van Bronckhorst, he's obviously played in the Premier League as well with Arsenal. So, he can obviously handle the voice, even let's say if he's only here on a temporary basis, Van Bronckhorst, if he can develop that relationship with him, he can tell him, how he adapted coming from a different country. That them little nuggets of information can be valuable. And look, there's players at Rangers who've also been in the Premier League, so it's not a case, that he's coming into kind of an unknown territory in terms of that, and having people to kind of wrap their arm around him and help him. But you mentioned that, if he's wants to be in consideration for pre-season, I think these next kind of 5-6 months, are crucial, and for Amad to adapt to the culture, adapt to the UK game almost. I was about to say English game, but obviously he's in Scotland. So, in terms of that style of football, and look, again, the fact you're going to Europa League, you're going to play against Dortmund, that's also a team that Amad was linked with last season. So, if you look at that, there's multiple different nuggets to kind of prove yourself. And I'm sure Man United's scouting team will be watching that game, not only to look at Amad, but also there's a certain number 9 over there that Man United may be looking at this summer. So, look, all these kind of little nuggets, probably they are very important for him. And I think if we do look at these next few months, for me, I just want to see him get football. I think the big thing for me is just develop physically. Because I remember a young Cristiano Ronaldo coming to the Premier League. And I remember a young Cristiano Ronaldo being skin and bone. He was literally not developed physically. He was getting kind of mangled in challenges. I seen that when Amad played this season, for Young Boys. For Manchester United against Young Boys in the Champions League. He was great on the ball. His 1-touch, 2-touch was great. One thing we did notice is the physical side of the game maybe hindered him. So I think this, if you're talking about physicality and you're talking about trying to win that second ball, trying to get used to the culture, to the football in the United Kingdom, this is a good move for him. And not only that, you have a big club, big expectation, because look, there's a rebuild coming this summer. So I think for Man United, if you want to be at a big club, Rangers is a good environment. Now, I suppose the only thing I said to you, Callum, is my only kind of, I suppose, opposition to kind of him going to Scotland was because how United have utilised their loan system this season in the Championship. Well, obviously, Laird, Garner, Bernard, Tai Chong, players like that have all kind of played in that similar environment, and Ted and Mengi as well. So like for me, I was kind of looking in and around that and saying, right, let's kind of keep him in that environment. But look, a big club in Rangers is a big responsibility, and look, you're going to be expected to perform. And look, as I said, when you're going to 60,000, in Celtic Park, it's similar to being at an Ireland game, because it's just absolute non-stop for 90 minutes. So look, I'm very interested to see. I watched the Old Firms anyway, but now I've more of an invested interest with Amad playing in that game. I'm interested to see kind of how he deals with it, and it's going to be very interesting to see. But guys, if you're watching on our other social media platforms, such as Facebook, Twitter, all that kind of stuff, jump over here to our Off United YouTube channel. This transfer deadline day, we've already done a video today in terms of Manchester United's transfer business with Graham Bailey. Ben hosts that this lunchtime. If you missed that, jump over to Off United YouTube and check that out. But also jump over here, because the insight that Callum's given us on Scottish football is very good in terms of this. And we're going to see a lot more of Amad Diallo in a Rangers shirt. So it'd be great to see Callum's insight here on how he can develop. And also support Off United as well, because we are fantastic Manchester United YouTube channel, and always very balanced. So if you want that type of content, do jump over here to Off United YouTube channel. But Callum, we're obviously looking at Amad's overall, I suppose, development. We're looking at game time. We're looking at kind of his overall adaptation to the United Kingdom. When you look at this move to Rangers now, in terms of competition, you mentioned he's up against like Sir Roof, and he's up against all these other players, Ryan Kent. When you look at other wingers in Scotland, in the Scottish game, let's say, not just, we take the Premier League and Championship all out of the equation. Well, if you look at the other wingers in Scottish football, Callum, who would you compare Amad to in that regard in terms of style of play and flair?
I think the one that's the obvious comparison, if I was to compare him to a current Celtic player, Keane, would be Jota, who's on loan from Benfica to Celtic. He's really impressed for Celtic. Celtic have an option to buy him for £6.5 million, which the club obviously want to activate, and I believe will activate. But the consensus seems to be, I was speaking funnily enough on a Benfica channel today about him. The consensus seems to be that Benfica may try and tempt him to snub Celtic, go back and get a game for them next season, or they may try and cash in and get even more money than the £6.5 million that's been agreed, because there's no doubt he will attract a lot of interest, whether he stays at Celtic or whether he turns to Benfica. He's been a fantastic player for Celtic so far, and like Amad, he's tricky. He's very direct. He likes to take players on in the dribble, which is something that I believe you don't see an awful lot of in football anymore. It's all about intricate passing and getting the pass to send you in behind. But Amad and Jota are two players that like to take players on, which I like watching, and I think is what a traditional winger would do. So that's certainly one to watch. The one point I do want to make, Keane, about the Championship and some of the clubs you mentioned. And again, this is not me having a go at you or any of the critics. I just want to give some context to this. Dijon Bernard is on loan at Hull City. I've spoken to him recently. It's been a great experience for him. He was on loan at Salford last season, albeit with no fans, which frustrated him. He's doing really well there. Hull City, as we speak, Keane, are 19th in the Championship. Chong and Mengi on loan at Birmingham City. Birmingham are currently 17th in the Championship. Albeit I would say James Garner, obviously at Nottingham Forest, they're in 8th, they're challenging for the playoffs. Okay, that's great. However, what I would say, and I know Rooney and Derby were linked, my argument would be that for Amad at this moment in time, Rangers is a better option than Hull, Derby and Birmingham. Rangers are of course a bigger club than those clubs. That I'm not disputing that side of it, but I think it's a better option for him than those three clubs in particular, because I don't mean to be disrespectful, but Hull and Birmingham are fighting to stay in the Championship, but have a bit of a buffer, especially with Derby's points deduction. Derby themselves, of course, would be a great story, Wayne Rooney fighting relegation. But the argument I would have, and touchwood, I'm never proven wrong with this, will United be realistically fighting a relegation battle? I hope not, and I don't assume so unless there's an
I hope you haven't jinxed us.
an Armageddon-like activity. So I think a move to either of those clubs where the other young players are on loan, I don't think would give them the benefit. Because, as I say, I don't think the pressure's necessarily the same. I think we all agree if Derby stay up, it's a miracle, but I don't think there's a real expectation that they have to stay up. And if Derby go down, I don't think anyone will say it's been a failure from Wayne Rooney's point of view. Similarly, if Hull and Birmingham finish mid-table, is anyone going to say it's been a terrible job by Grant? I know Grant McCann's been replaced by a Rangers legend, funnily enough, in shot Avaladze. Will anyone say it's been a disastrous job? No, it's their first season back up. And with Birmingham, they've had troubles on and off the park for a number of years now. So I think Rangers is a better move than those three clubs in particular for the reasons I've outlined. I would accept Keane, a team like a Nottingham Forest or a Bournemouth or a Fulham or a Blackburn. You could say that pressure will be there to win and get in playoffs or automatics. But as I say, even with the pressure you would get at those clubs, it won't compare to Rangers. Rangers, as we've talked about already, are playing in European football against Dortmund. They are big underdogs for that game, as you would expect. And that's a game that Amad, of course, will look to shine in. And if he does shine in that game, that's the sort of game, as you've said, United will pinpoint and say, let's see what you can do in this. Now, it'll be difficult for Rangers, of course, with the difference in budgets between the two clubs and the difference in personnel, but upsets have happened before and they certainly could happen again. But
Dutch teams have done it in the Champions League. Remember, I know it's Europa League, but remember that game, Celtic-Barcelona, 81% possession, Barcelona come to Celtic Park and get beaten 2-1. It's happened before.
It has happened before, and even Rangers under Steven Gerrard were taking teams like Benfica on and not being frightened of them at all, and really putting in good performances. So I think it's definitely going to be interesting to see him in those games. But the main point that I've made a few times, and I would just emphasise to people that maybe are still sceptical, is Rangers need to win every single game. As I say, a draw really is a crisis and a defeat is a disaster. The coverage up here of Celtic and Rangers, as you can imagine, there's about 3 football phone-ins that air on the same night up here, and they're all packed with callers. The front and back pages are dominated by Celtic and Rangers. Ange Postecoglou, Gio van Bronckhorst, Amad, Jota, you name it, it's everywhere. The pressure is only going to build on both of those teams with this title race. Celtic could go top if they defeat Rangers on Wednesday. Rangers obviously could build a slight buffer if they win on Wednesday. So it's for me, from a mentality perspective, I think it's a perfect move because there's not going to be an easy game. I know people will say, "Oh, Ross County at the weekend, that's just a blip for Rangers." And yes, in the grand scheme of things, it is. But the away grounds that you'll go to in the main Keane are very difficult. Tynecastle, as you've probably seen, Celtic went there the other night. Tough place to go. Fans right on top of the pitch. Old school ground. Hearts are 10 points clear of Motherwell in third. They're a good side in this league. Hibs have just hired Sean Maloney, who was the Belgium assistant manager who left that post to take on Hibs. He's getting his team to play some expansive football. Again, that's going to be a test for a player like Amad. Graham Alexander's Motherwell side are very physical, I would say. They are technical as well, but I would say out of the top 6 at the moment, his team are the most physical and not afraid to stick their foot in. And again, that's going to be another unique challenge for him because the physicality in this league in Scotland, in my opinion, it's much stronger physically than the Premier League. And that might sound crazy. I think Joey Barton and others have found that out to their peril when they've come up here. You only have to look at your very own Shane Duffy, who arrived in Scottish football last year. He's doing well in the Premier League, and I don't think coming up here and not adapting makes you a bad player, and people try and get involved in polarising arguments. The technical quality, Keane, of the English Premier League is of a greater standard to Scottish football. I'm not disputing that. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find many people that would dispute that. However, the pace of the game up here, you don't get a minute on the ball. In the Premier League, how many teams do you see come to Old Trafford or even United away from home where you can very easily just pass it around your back 4, put it into the pivot in midfield, play it wide, get it back, play it back to the centre half, you get that time. In Scotland, you just don't. At home, Rangers will have time to pass it around the back 4, as will Celtic. However, away from home, you see teams playing direct football, going for second balls, getting in your face, not being scared to put a tackle in, and physicality is let go a lot more up here as well. Not a lot more that players are going to be in danger, but you're not going to see yellow cards coming out in Scottish football for nothing, so it will toughen them up. and it will give him a chance to develop as a player, because he's going to be playing in front of 50,000 fans every week at Ibrox. Even when Celtic aren't playing Rangers, Ibrox and Celtic Park are always full or nearly full. So he's going to be playing in front of an expectant crowd at home every single week. He's going to have some tough physical battles on the road. And in those Celtic Rangers games, Keane, he's going to get a test mentally that you could never believe. So many players have come up here. Roy Keane, who you're named after, came up to Celtic. Those games, he even said the atmosphere really tested him, and he had all the experience in the world when he came up to Celtic. You mentioned guys like Van Bronckhorst himself, Arthur Newman, another great Dutch player who was up here, Stefan Klos, a great German goalkeeper who was at Rangers as well. All these guys have talked about what that game does to you and how much it doesn't just test your football ability, but it tests you mentally, it tests your concentration, and it tests your discipline, because if you get an early booking in a game like that, you really need to be careful, because you'll be targeted by not only the players, but the opposition fans. So all in all, as I've said, I think it's a great move for Rangers. I think it's a great move for Amad. And I think it's a great decision from Manchester United. Of course, as I say, if I put my green-tinted spectacles on, I'd be saying, right, I maybe didn't want a player of Amad's quality to join Rangers. But as I say, I look at these things from a professional perspective, and the boxes for me are all ticked. The player gets to develop technically, physically, and mentally. United are sending him to a club where the expectation is to win. No, draws aren't good enough, defeats are don't go there. Rangers fans would tell you that. So, as I say, all in all, I think it's a perfect move for the player, the perfect move for United, and a perfect move for Rangers. I think I don't want to say a match made in heaven. That sounds very cheesy, and obviously we don't know how the season's going to pan out for Rangers, Celtic, Amad, Jota, any of these guys. There's a lot of pressure coming in the months ahead. But on paper, I think it's a perfect move to test this young man mentally, technically. And if you can't handle the pressure of Rangers, are you realistically going to handle the pressure of United? Big test, and I think United have made a great call by sending him up here.
Absolutely. And look, you hit the nail on the head with regards to, you've swayed me on this show. You've swayed me in terms of, what I think about the move. And look, I'm going to have more of an invested interest in Scottish football than I ever did these next 5 months. And who knows, maybe I'll be looking to come on Callum's show, talk about more Scottish football stuff in these next coming weeks and months. But just before we wrap up, obviously people love stats and people love how well players have done. I just got the stats for Amad's first game against Ross County, which was, again, a very brilliant and entertaining 3-3 draw. Very unexpected result by all accounts. So just with regards to Amad's stats for that game, though obviously a high-intensity game like this, he had 100% cross accuracy, 90.5 pass accuracy, 38 touches, and 21 passes. So you take that into consideration. He's took 38 touches the ball. 21 of them have been successful passes. 4 shots, 2 fouls won, which I think this is very important for a player of his style in Scottish football. It was the most fouls won on the pitch. Now, we're not condoning diving or anything like that. What we are condoning is, you be a flair player and you do your best. 1 take on completed, 1 chance created, and 1 goal. So that was an absolutely great start by Amad Diallos. So, look, by all accounts, he's after making a great start to life in Scotland. He has a big few months coming with the Europa League, Scottish Cup, and also the title race, which, look, hopefully Man United are back in at some stage soon. But look, he has a massive got 5 months development, not just from a Manchester United standpoint, but also to help Rangers win a trophy this season as well, or a couple of trophies in that regard. As Callum said, a draw, is a disaster. And if you look at these type of things, a draw and a loss is a disaster. Now imagine if you lose the league to Celtic. That's a catastrophe. That's an absolute catastrophe. So look, for Amad, he's going to get that winning mentality instilled in him. And who knows, if Man United do dip into other areas of the market, and let's say we are still stacked in them winger areas, maybe Amad could stay in Scotland for another year on loan. We never know. This could happen. He might like it there. Just
to come in that, Keane, and add even more context to the success that Rangers or Celtic are going to have this season. The winner of the league in Scotland this year gets automatic Champions League group stage football next year. That's worth around 30 to 40 million pounds, which for either side, whoever wins the title, is monumental in Scotland. Celtic's record sale, of course, Kieran Tierney, £25 million to Arsenal. That money was greatly appreciated by the Celtic board, not so much by the Celtic fans, but it was money that Celtic desperately, not saying desperately needed, but they certainly like. The model at Celtic, and Rangers are following this model now under Ross Wilson, who's their new director of football, and this is what you'll expect to see from Rangers coming over the next couple of years. You've seen it with Nathan Patterson, Everton for £16 million. Scottish football is in a position financially where the big selling point is join Celtic or Rangers, develop in front of passionate fans, 50,000 and 60,000 every single week, playing European football. Obviously, as I say, the winners are going to have Champions League group stage football next year. That's a massive carrot to any player at any level, in my opinion. And then when the price is right, in a couple of years of good service, you go to the Premier League. Look at Odsonne Edouard, look at Christopher Ayer, Nathan Patterson's going down there. Andrew Robertson's another player, albeit obviously from a smaller club in Dundee United when he moved on. But that's the sort of carrot that's out there. And for Amad, if he comes up here and is successful, he could play group stage Champions League football at Rangers next season. That is the carrot that's on offer for any of these players that are at Celtic or Rangers, and that's only going to add to the drama. And as you say, Keane, it's something that could work out for United at an 18-month loan. I am aware at the moment from a contact at the club who I speak to in regards to players in the academy structure that it is a 6-month loan deal. There is no option to buy. There is no intention to sell the player and even contemplate selling the player at this stage. So 6 months is 6 months at the moment, but it's going to be a hectic 6 months. It's going to be a crazy 6 months. Champions League group stage football, as I've said, is on offer, and it's going to be very interesting to see which team comes out on top. As I say, with my green tinted glasses on, everyone knows who I hope wins the title. But if I put my professional head on, it's going to be very close, and may the best team win, because you've got two teams that have been doing well this season. Rangers, stereotypically and traditionally, are normally known as a team that's more sound defensively, and under Steven Gerrard, that was certainly the case. They were quite rigid, as you mentioned, Keane, which I thought was a perfect word to put it. They were rigid, but could score goals as well, albeit not normally lots and lots of goals on a consistent basis. However, you're seeing Van Bronckhorst and his side play slightly more expansive. The 3-8 draw at the weekend, I think, tells you everything you need to know in that regard. They're signing a player like Aaron Ramsey, who's proven on the European stage at Arsenal and Juventus, albeit sparingly at Juventus. And it's going to be a fascinating title race. Celtic have had a lot of investment from Japanese football. They've signed Maeda, Ideguchi and Tatati in January from Japanese football. They've also added Matt O'Reilly, who's highly rated from English football from MK Dons. See the release clause that the club activated. So Amad's coming into a Rangers side that's going full pelt for the title, and he's not up against a poor Celtic side. He's up against a Celtic side that's going full pelt under Ange Postecoglou. So I think it's the perfect time for any young player in England at one of the elite clubs, whether it's United or elsewhere, to come to Scotland if you get a chance to play for one of these two clubs, because in the last 10 years, there was an argument that Celtic were streets ahead of Rangers financially and on the pitch, and coming to Scotland didn't really mean anything. In the 1990s, there was an argument that Rangers were well ahead of Celtic financially. Whether that was right or wrong, I'll leave that for other people to argue about and the logistics of all that stuff. But Celtic were well behind Rangers in the 90s. Celtic well ahead in the 2010s. Now you're getting as close to a level playing field, Keane, as we've seen since Gordon Strachan and Walter Smith were in charge of the respective clubs in around 2007 to 2010. So you're seeing two teams that are going hammer and tong at this title. I think it'll only be decided by a matter of points, no more than 5, either way, whether it's a Celtic win or a Rangers win this season for the title. So Amad's coming up here at the perfect time to experience the cauldron of Scottish football, and Glasgow certainly is that. He won't be able to go anywhere without being mobbed for selfies and mobbed for attention. So big learning curve for him, a good move for him, and as I say, he may the best team win the title up here this season, because it's certainly going to be an exciting end to the season, regardless of who wins it.
Absolutely. And look, if he's coming into a title race and he's coming into that type of environment, I think that can only benefit him coming back to our club in the summer. And look, who knows? Let's see what happens to him, because he might like it there and he might want to stay. Like that can happen. So look, we'll see what happens these next 5 months. And as you said, like, this is the closest that the SPL has been. SPFL, that's what it's called. It used to be called the SPL. But this is the closest it's been in quite some time. And yes, you've had Celtic going for the like 10 in a row, and you have all these different types of things. Now, obviously it's at the flipping around the other side now. Rangers were doing well last season, and now it's, as you said, it's neck and neck. Big Old Firm derby this week. So it's, as we said, a baptism of fire for Amad. And hopefully, look, let's see what happens with him in these next coming weeks and months. And I'm just going to touch on Dale's comment as well. Happy deadline day for us United fans, guys. Sorry to disappoint you, but I don't think it's going to be a happy deadline day for us this year. I don't think we're going to see any incomings today. But look, you never know. There's a few hours left. Ousmane Dembele's been linked. There's other players been linked. I don't think so. I don't think anyone's going to come in. But, look, hopefully, the summer is probably our window this year. And look, there's a lot of players have been moved on from our football club this year in terms of 2022, in terms of our loan deals, and maybe Jesse may leave as well. But look, our big windows of summer, and we mentioned Dortmund a while ago. Hopefully that man from Dortmund comes over here. That'd be my personal preference in a number 9. If there's anyone to replace Cristiano, it's him. But thanks very much, everyone, for tuning in today. It's been absolutely fantastic insight from Callum on Scottish football, on Rangers. And as I said on Twitter there 2 hours ago, he's going to educate me, and quite frankly, he has. So, Callum, thanks very much for coming on. Massively appreciate it. Always enjoy speaking to you about football. And it's actually great to learn a thing or two today in terms of just outside of Manchester United, in terms of Scottish football and Rangers and all that type of stuff. So thanks very much, Callum. Really do appreciate you coming on.
Absolute pleasure, Keane. And as I say, whenever I talk about Scottish football, and I hope people that follow me on Twitter can see this, I try and speak through a neutral lens. Of course, I've got my own club allegiances in English football with United and Scottish football with Celtic. But when I'm talking about football in a public space, I try to do it from as neutral a point of view as I can. Privately, of course, with friends and family, I'm wanting my team to win, and it's a different conversation. But I always try and keep it professional online. And as I say, this title race is going to be massive up here this season. The one thing I'd like to say before I go, whether you support, obviously, I'm assuming all of us support United who are going to be watching this, but even if you don't, give Scottish football a go between now and the end of the season. If you've got Sky Sports or wherever it's shown in your part of the world, you won't regret it. It's a product worth watching. And whether you're invested in Amad or not, whether you're invested in Celtic or Rangers or Hearts or Hibs, whichever, if you've got a team or you don't, give it a chance, because I don't think you will regret it. I think you'll enjoy what you see. The soap opera never ends, trust me.
Everyone loves a good soap opera. So in regards to that, do heed Callum's advice with regards to that. And also, guys, do smash a like in the video, hit that subscribe button. Again, we have a lot of interesting content coming this evening. We do have Connor and Benny's show later on today as well. So do check that out as well. And also check out Callum's work on his Twitter page, on the World Football Index, and also his podcasts on Football CFBs, regularly interviewing Manchester United players. So if you're a Manchester United fan, you're watching this, which I'd like to hope you are, and do go over and check out Callum's work. He does fantastic work related to this football club, but also he's interviewed former United players, also and Celtic players like Henrik Larsson. So look, if you want to get all that insight, do jump over and catch Callum's work on the World Football Index and on Football CFB and the multiple other platforms he does work for, because he's everywhere. He does absolutely fantastic work. So do check Callum out. But until then, guys, thanks very much everyone for watching. I hope you have an all good Monday. Have a good week. And look, we have Manchester United back this Friday. So look, let's hope our weeks get a bit more positive before the storm on Friday. But until then, guys, thanks very much for watching. And look, we'll see you later on the week.